Red Bull, the reigning champ, just fired a warning shot that echoed through the F1 universe. They're basically telling everyone, hey, don't even think about stealing our crown in 2024. It's like a high-stakes game of chess, but with roaring engines and screeching tires. Classic F1, right? Here's the lowdown. Red Bull's rivals are itching to dethrone them, and oh boy, it's a stacked lineup. Ferrari is eyeing that top spot like a kid eyeing a candy store. Will they finally crack the code? And don't even get me started on Mercedes. Can they make a legendary comeback? McLaren is on a stellar progress streak, but they can turn into a podium-topping leap. Oh, and let's not forget about Aston Martin and their early season momentum. Can they keep the fire burning? But hold on, we might have gone a bit too far with Alpine. No offense, but the chances are slimmer than a runway model. Anyway, the point is, these teams are gearing up for a massive showdown in 2024, thanks to some mind-blowing changes in car concepts and redesigns. Now, imagine being in Red Bull's shoes, sitting pretty at the top, watching all these challengers rev up their engines. Team principal Christian Horner drops a bombshell, saying that they've been secretly cooking up something special since the summer break. Horner spills the tea, revealing that Red Bull has been pouring resources into the RB20, not just because they love numbers, but to tackle some pesky aerodynamic testing restrictions. And get this, there's been a little performance boost since the summer break. But wait, there's more. Red Bull has been shouting from the rooftops about focusing on 2024 all year. It's like they've been planning this comeback for ages. Horner spills the beans on Hungary right before the mid-season break. We rarely have to swing our focus over to next year. Red Bull, once on the back foot for a whole year in terms of aerodynamic development, is about to turn the tables. Red Bull, the reigning champs, playing a high-stakes game with the F1 gods, and they've got a wild disadvantage. Less aerodynamic testing time. Yep, it's like sending Mario into a race without his trusted cart. Unfair, right? So, F1's got these aerodynamic testing regulations, and Red Bull's been rocking in it at the top of the ATR charts. But here's the catch. Being on top means less wind tunnel runs and CFD goodies. Red Bull's had 70% of the max testing time in 2023. They got a bonus round, a 10% reduction as a slap on the wrist for their 2021 cost cap breach. Ouch, right? But being the F1 wizards they are, Red Bull turned this setback into a setup. They decided to channel all that testing mojo into their 2024 car. Why, you ask? Well, their 2023 dance moves were so impressive that they avoided the dilemma of choosing between this year's car and the next year's beast. It's like saying, why focus on the past when the future looks so good? And who's feeling the burn? Mercedes and Ferrari especially. Let's talk about Red Bull's 2023 dominance. In terms of single lap pace, they were the Usain Bolt of F1. The race itself? Well, their fair advantage ballooned like a helium-filled balloon on steroids. But what makes this even juicier is the lack of a consistent rival. Ferrari, with its red-hot engine, usually led the pack, but in the second half of the season, McLaren jumped into the spotlight as the second-best team. So, not only did Red Bull have a clear advantage, but there wasn't a single team doing the long-term hustle to unseat them. Now, let's talk about Christian Horner's claim. Is Red Bull really slacking on the development game? We're diving deep into the evolution of the RB19. Red Bull's pride and joy. In the first half of the season, they were throwing upgrades like confetti at a party. April rolled in and boom, Red Bull introduces a modified floor and a new side pod inlet shape. In Baku, it's like giving the RB19 a fresh wardrobe, all chic and aerodynamic. And just before that, in Australia, they teased us with a modified front wing. June hits, and in Spain, more tweaks to the floor. It's like they can't resist fine-tuning their masterpiece. Then, Canada joins the upgrade party with a brand spanking new front wing. Austria? Oh, just some modified rear suspension fairings. But the real party is in Hungary in July. Another floor upgrade, and wait for it, a twist in the cod inlet shape. It's like Red Bull is playing 4D chess with aerodynamics. And guess what? These modifications give them an aerodynamic advantage. Let's get technical. The cod inlet modifications don't eat into their aerodynamic testing time as much because there is some leeway for cooling related stuff. After the summer break, things cooled down on the upgrade front. We got a few tweaks here and there, a new beam wing, tweaked floor edges, and a fancy modified rear wing end plate in Singapore. Now, Red Bull's been making gains, but they've hit a plateau since the what's impressive is how their mechanical platform and aerodynamic characteristics are doing the tango. Shout out to Adrian Newey for designing a killer suspension system last year, the unsung hero of the RB19. Now, let's spill the tea on F1's own analysis. It suggests that Ferrari might have lost 0.14 seconds in average pace compared to Red Bull in 2022. Ouch. Meanwhile, Mercedes managed to scrape together a measly 0.0009 seconds gain. Now, rewind a bit to Monaco, where the world got a sneak peek under Red Bull's hood when Sergio Perez had a little rendezvous with the barriers. But here's the kicker. Despite everyone getting a front row view of Red Bull's underfloor, they managed to stay ahead. How, you ask? Well, according to Red Bull's chief engineer Paul Monaghan, it's like they had a magic trick up their sleeves. Let's play the guessing game. Which team is brave enough to take on the Red Bull challenge? Well, it could be any of them or none of them at all. Ferrari, our fiery friends, have been the closest contenders. They've been inching closer to the Red Bull concept with some fancy downwash action and undercover floor changes. They're promising a whole new car, like a fresh wardrobe makeover with architectural changes that promise more speed. Charles Leclerc spilled the tea, saying they've realized some architectural oopsies this year and they're steering in the right direction. Let's talk about Mercedes. They're promising architectural changes, building on recent progress to make Lewis Hamilton's ride even more to his liking. Toto Wolff, the man in charge, hinted that without the pesky cost cap, they'd have introduced a new monocoque this season. Then there's McLaren, the dark horse of the season. They've been studying Red Bull like it's their final exam after the Monaco floor revelation. It's like they found the Red Bull cheat codes and are applying them to their own development. They've been the MVPs of the second half of the season, and it's clear they're not here to just make up the numbers. Ferrari's got this wild plan to balance their magnificent fast corner performance. If they pull this off, we're talking about a car that's not just fast, but a complete package, like a superhero with all the right moves. Now, let's talk about Aston Martin. They're like the dark horses in this F1 race. You can't count them out. They're eyeing the big leap over the winter. And you know what? They've pulled off surprises before. It's like the underdog in a sports movie making a comeback. Will they do it again? Well, they're all making gains and dreaming of having a car as good as this year's Red Bull. There's that wild card, the RB20. It could be the game changer, the disruptor, the maverick of the F1 world. Now, here's a little F1 secret for you. They say performance converges when rules are stable, and 2024 is year 3 of these regulations. But dear racing buddies, don't be fooled. Red Bull, the reigning champs, knows how to stay ahead of the game. In 2023, they took a leap forward with some suspension wizardry at the rear, improving the mechanical platform. Others are playing catch-up, trying to match Red Bull for anti-dive and anti-squat. But what's the mastermind? Adrian Newey, cooking up in the meantime. The one limitation is research and development time aerodynamically. Red Bull has aced the game by not overdoing it on the RB19. Christian Horner, the Red Bull guru, says the limitations will impact the 2024 car, but don't bet on it compromising Red Bull's reign. Because Red Bull was dominating the last 2 years, not just because they've got the best car, but because they understand these ground effect regulations like no one else. And guess what? That understanding won't change next year. They might get caught in 2024, but the failure of rivals to apply the pressure is like a helping hand for Red Bull. Will they conquer the altered F1 rule? Can Aston Martin pull off a comeback of the century? And will Red Bull continue to be the undisputed champion? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.